So you believe in God? Well, that's not central to who you are. Shut your church. You don't need to go to church. Like, where's that mentality
It
come
is surprising that came from Kenny, because I don't think his faith is a hobby to him. I think he does take it very seriously. I think it is central to who he is.
Absolutely.
He, I guess, either, we talked about this a lot at the time what was happened. He either believed, I think seriously, that he had to do this because it was such an emergency that we had to shut down these churches. We had to barricade these rebels. We had to arrest these pastors because they were such a threat to public safety and possibly to government authority. Or on the other side, the politician got the better of him and he saw it as good politics. That maybe arresting these pastors would win him support with centrist voters who are maybe a bit more deferential to the authority of the state to impose these kinds of measures. I don't think Kenny ever saw it as church as a hobby. I don't think he saw it that way. But either he probably believed in his heart that it was so important that we had to jail these pastors, we had to shut down these churches to preserve public health and public order, or it was just good politics, he thought.
To be exquisitely precise, I think it was Alberta Health who actually moved in
on the orders of the Alberta government, though. They were doing this under the authority of decisions made by the cabinet. And that's what the Ingram decision came down to, is the decisions were ordered by the cabinet and not by Hinshaw.
Thing is, you couldn't go to church, but you could go to a restaurant. Other way around in BC, by the way, you could they closed the restaurants down. But I mean, when you look for consistency and logic in all of this mess, it's so hard to find it. How can that be a consistent policy? That's fine. This is not.
And I thought that, I was a strong supporter of Kenny when he was on his way in and up. And I'd always heard of him as being a strong supporter outside of the faith aspect of civil liberties. I mean, you don't get much more faithless than I. And I strongly understand the incredible importance, though, of the preservation of the right to practice and gather to take part in your religion. It's an absolute right that must be protected, violated only at the most extreme of last resorts. And so I was just as horrified watching them fence in a church and keeping people away from their social gathering and their faith as anybody should be. I mean, COVID turned everything upside down. Yeah, it really did.
I think you hit on a really strong point, Nigel, that I think a lot of non-church goers view it as going to like your bridge club. Maybe they know it's a little more serious than going to a bridge club, but I mean, you can wait. You don't really need to do it. We're working from home now. You can wait.
The importance of a central social place, though. Somebody talked about a bit in the past as a bar owner. I don't want to fully compare, going to the bar to going to church, but it's true. Everybody has their social structures that are very important to them. Their gatherings, weekly, daily, and so on. And I saw the suffering of my regular bar goers who used to come to our bar. There was nothing else for them. When they were locked out of the bar, they had nowhere else to go. And I can't relate the specifics. There's a couple of fellows, they really succumbed to alcoholism because, whereas they'd have one or two at the bar, now that they had no outlet, stayed in their homes and just drank themselves out. Like, it's important to people to have their social gathering, the people with them, whether it's through faith or through all these other outlets.
His bar that he owned in Prentice was effectively the local church.
Well, to some people, in a sense, I'm just meaning it's people underestimate the damage done when you shut people away from their social outlets.
We won't get into it, but also of note, Pastor Hildebrandt in Ontario. Now, they didn't have the Ingram decision there that just nullified everything because it's Ontario, so different. But the government dropped all charges but one, and he ended up pleading guilty to one, ended up paying a big fine. But he got most things let off on it, and he was a very strong refusenik there as well. But unfortunately, there's going to be less justice done in Ontario than in Alberta, because here our government was dumb enough to not follow its own rules and who actually signs off on the orders. We've talked about this previously with the new heritage minister. Pablo Rodriguez was on public safety, where I kind of like, when you have a bad government, I kind of prefer them to be incompetent than smart, because you can get they're less effective in oppressing you when they're incompetent. And Alberta's government was incompetent enough that they didn't do the paperwork right, which nullified all their own mandates post facto. So unfortunately, Ontario seems to have actually crossed the T's and dotted the I's a little more, and so less justice to be done for the refuseniks there.